All right, are you ready? It's time to geek out to the weather. We've got another action-packed weather for Weather Geeks video for you this evening here on the Storm Tracker 21 app, WFMJ.com, my weather blog, ericwfmj.com, and be sure you're following me on all of the social media outlets as we gear up for a winter storm here. Twitter, EricWFMJ, also on Instagram, I'm EricWFMJ, in addition, of course, to my Facebook page, which a lot of people follow me on. Let's get right to it this evening. Let's not waste a whole lot of time here. Briefly touching on tomorrow's rain chances here. I'll get my head out of the way. You know, we're not looking at much precipitation during the daylight hours tomorrow, but as we get into the afternoon, there could be a spotty shower. The big story for tomorrow is actually the warmth. The record high tomorrow is kind of low-hanging fruit, but 56 should be fairly easy to break tomorrow afternoon. Got a forecast high of 58. All right, let's talk about what to expect with our winter storm. This is going to begin as rain Friday morning. It'll be in the upper 40s, maybe even close to 50 at daybreak Friday morning. But then rain will transition over to freezing rain in the afternoon because temperatures are going to fall very quickly. I think we get down to about 32 degrees by about 1 o'clock, maybe 2 o'clock at the latest Friday afternoon. And precipitation will still be falling in the liquid form. And so I think this will become freezing rain. Now, it's not going to be crazy heavy. This is not going to be a crippling ice storm. But there will be some liquid precipitation falling with temperatures below freezing Friday afternoon, can make surfaces slick. Now, I think as we go towards the evening, rain will transition over to more sleet than freezing rain, and then eventually that sleet will transition over to snow overnight Friday night. And conditions can be very slick into the day on Saturday, even though the steadiest of the snow will have stopped by mid-morning at the latest. So that's kind of a macro view. We'll get into the details now, break things down hour by hour. Again, tomorrow is a warm day, upper 50s, some showers tomorrow evening, some showers into tomorrow night and Friday morning. Now, as we get into Friday afternoon, again, 1, 2 o'clock Friday afternoon, we start to see the lower levels cooling off below freezing. Meanwhile, there's warm air above our heads, at least air that's warmer than 32 degrees. So we're going to see freezing rain for a time Friday afternoon. Now, what we want is a quick transition over to sleet. We don't want a prolonged period of freezing rain. That'd be bad news. But eventually this will turn over to sleet, and then eventually, probably late in the evening on Friday evening and into the overnight, the sleet will give way to snow, and snow will then continue for a handful of hours. Our snow accumulations will greatly depend on how fast that transition occurs from sleet over to snow. The modeling this afternoon has trended weaker and faster with this wave of low pressure. I think that limits the top end of the snowfall potential. The snowfall potential can also be limited by too much sleet. So those are some of the forecast challenges we have. Again, the snow tapers off pretty early in the day on Saturday. Once again, I'll get out of the way here, and this is a complicated graphic, but I'll spend some time on it to break it down. This is the timing. The clock times are right here. This is Friday, and then here's Saturday morning. The snow, again, most problematic near and after midnight Friday night. The freezing rain, most problematic mid-afternoon, early evening on Friday, and then sleet as we get into the rest of the evening. The wind will pick up by Saturday morning, and even though it's not going to be snowing much at all during the daylight hours on Saturday, the snow that's sitting on the ground will progressively get fluffier and drier as the storm pulls away. It'll start kind of wet, and then it'll transition into that kind of drier stuff that's easy to blow around. And with winds picking up on Saturday and temperatures no higher than the teens, wind chills look like they'll be close to zero for most of Saturday. Now, what we're rooting for here on Friday is sleet as opposed to freezing rain. When we talk about different types of precipitation, the problem with sleet and freezing rain comes in when you have air up a couple of thousand feet that's warmer than the air right at the ground. So when you have freezing rain, the precipitation stays liquid all the way down to the ground because the cold layer is so shallow. The sub-32 air is basically just hugging the ground. You don't have to head up far at all to find temperatures above freezing. Sleet occurs when the cold layer is thicker, the warm layer is thinner. So as the snowflakes melt in that warm layer, they then encounter that thicker cold layer. They don't become snowflakes again. Snow, once it melts, does not become snow again. It becomes little ice pellets, and that's what we call sleet. And freezing rain is more problematic than sleet. Now, sleet, if it falls heavily enough, can make things slick. But sleet does not adhere to things like freezing rain does. You don't see sleet accumulating on tree limbs and weighing them down and power lines and that sort of thing. Sleet can be an inconvenience, but it's much preferable to freezing rain overall. Now, if you do have to travel Friday afternoon, Friday evening, you know, this is going to be one of those situations where you've got to have your driving skills sharpened a little bit, because it could be slippery out there. Even on treated surfaces, it could be a little bit slick at times. Keep your steering wheel straight. You know, if you run into some trouble, don't slam on the brakes. That's never a good idea. Just let off the gas. That's usually the better way to slow down if you start to skid or slide a little bit. So, you know, a lot of people are very good winter weather drivers. Some people are not so much, and, you know, those are some challenges we have ahead of us for Friday afternoon, Friday evening. Now, some good news on the model trends today when it comes to ice. Last night on this video, I showed you some pretty ugly ice accumulation forecasts on the modeling. With the faster ideas on the modeling and the weaker ideas, I do think that most of our region is out of the woods as far as any sort of really significant ice accumulations. And I'm emphasizing really significant. We're going to see ice, but a crippling ice storm does not seem likely. Most of our modeling, with the exception of the RPM right now, is less than 0.2 of an inch worth of ice accretion. Now, people know what 6 inches of snow is. A lot of people may not, quite understand what 1/10 of an inch of ice really means. Here's kind of a rough guideline as to ice accumulations. When you get up to 1/10 of an inch, or 1/10 of an inch or less, I should say, that can make things slick. Some isolated utility interruptions can't be ruled out. Once you get above 1/10 of an inch, and especially once you get up to 1/4 of an inch, that's when ice accretion becomes really, really problematic. That's the kind of ice, when you get up to about 1/4 of an inch, that's the kind of ice that can weigh down tree limbs and sag power lines and cause lots of problems. And then once you're up above 1/4 of an inch, that's a bona fide ice storm, something we don't see very often around here. It's pretty uncommon around here. It's more common out in the Plains states and up into southeastern Canada. Around here, it's hard to get that much ice. Typically, it's either going to be a mixed bag, or we just turn over to rain, or we just turn over to snow. It's hard for us to get a bona fide ice storm around here. Now, what I've done with the map as far as significant ice potential in this brighter pink, this is the zone that has the highest risk of seeing the kind of ice that can be really problematic for utility interruptions and that sort of thing. I think it's more likely down towards Wheeling, Steubenville, maybe over towards Pittsburgh, maybe as far north as Elwood City, Newcastle, then heading over towards Clarion and Franklin Oil City, and heading east on 80. Boy, this is no fun at all, eastbound. If you're heading east into Pennsylvania on Friday, especially Friday afternoon, Friday evening, this could be really problematic. It's very mountainous over here, and with ice falling, I used to live over in central PA, and I-80, if it flurries, it's a nightmare. If you get some icing problems, just avoid that if you possibly can. So our ice concerns in a lot of Mahoning County, Trumbull County, Mercer County, it's going to get slick. We're concerned about slippery travel, but a bona fide ice storm doesn't seem all that likely. Now let's start talking about the snow. Again, this is late Friday evening into the overnight and first thing Saturday morning. Here's a look at our computer model spread. The RPM kind of dives off here first thing Saturday morning. Just kind of ignore the little dive off here and pay attention to the peak. It has up to around 4 inches. The European 4 to 5. The GFS and NAM are the most bullish right now in the current runs in the modeling, but most of the numbers here are between 4 and 8 inches, largely based on a 10-to-1 snow to liquid ratio. Now the ratios can get a little higher than 10-to-1. It'll probably be closer to 15-to-1 by late Friday night, Saturday morning. Good average will probably be 12 to 14-to-1. Here's what I've done with the snow. Whoops, let me back up and take a look at that. Here's what I've done with the percentages as far as most likely accumulations here with the snow. I think a real good chance of seeing about 4 inches in a lot of places, and up to 8 is a possibility. Lower end chances of kind of a rip-off zone where we're less than 4, I can't rule that out. Notice 15% is still, that's not 0. It's not down in the single digits. It's a legitimate concern that we get so much sleet and the transition is so slow and the storm is pulling away with the deepest moisture pulling away that by the time it starts snowing, there's not much moisture to wring out. That's the situation in which we would get less than 4 inches. The situation in which we get the higher end of that 4 to 8 range, or maybe even more than 8, which is looking a little less likely now, For that to happen, you need a faster transition from sleet to snow, and the storm would have to be a little bit farther west than a lot of the modeling has been showing today, because we'd be in the deeper moisture then. So, you know, right now 4 to 8 seems pretty likely, and if I were a betting man, most of us will probably be closer to the 4 than the 8. Wouldn't want to guarantee that just yet, but that's kind of what I think right now. As far as the map view goes, this will be probably a bigger storm up in the Cleveland area, Ashtabula, over towards Erie, just what they need, huh? And up into Buffalo as well. This is not lake effect, but the lake effect zones are going to do pretty well with this. A good 8 to 12 inches, pretty likely in that zone. Up to a few inches down towards the Columbus area, and then lower amounts as you head south and east because of lingering sleet and the fact that the higher moisture content is going to be up here as the storm is pulling away. So, you know, zooming in on our local area, right now I have our entire viewing area in the 4 to 8 zone. If you see me make a change tonight before 21 News at 11, I may have to start shaving this area at least out of the 4 to 8 and put them in more in the 2 to 4. I am concerned about a slower transition to snow. I'm concerned about by the time it starts snowing, we're out of the deeper moisture, and it may be hard to get up to 4 inches in some of these places. But for right now, as of 7:42, I've got our entire viewing area in the 4 to 8 inch zone on top of a layer of ice. So, you know, this is going to be no fun at all. Now, in the wake of the storm, cold becomes the story again. Here are the wind chills on the map. Friday evening, down in the teens. By Saturday morning, as the storm is pulling away, wind chills be close to 0. Air temperatures in the teens, blowing snow. And Saturday afternoon, not much better. Wind chills probably no better than the single digits. Those wind chills drop below 0, then Saturday night and Sunday morning as air temperatures drop down into the single digits and close to 0. And Monday morning, no fun at all. Wind chills way below 0 and air temperatures pretty close to 0 again. Monday morning. There is good news in this, though. Other than the record warmth tomorrow, the other piece of good news is in the longer range, still on track for a nice thaw second half of next week into the following weekend. It may take until Thursday or Friday of next week for us to shake the Arctic air, because it looks pretty cold into at least Tuesday, perhaps even Wednesday. By the latter half of next week into the following weekend, it is going to warm up in a lot of the eastern U.S. Now, we're not talking 70s or anything like that. Keep in mind our averages are 32 for highs at this time of the year, so a 40-degree day is several degrees above average. So let's not let our expectations get out of control, but I think we'll see 40s, kind of like today, on at least a few occasions, end of next week into the following weekend. All right, there's a lot to keep track of. I'm going to be looking at the freshest computer model data starting. We start to get real model data in the evenings right around 9 to 9:30. That's when the NAM starts to come in. The GFS starts to come in closer to 10:30. And so I'll have both of those models along with some other information to look at before I go on the air at 11 tonight. So I may or may not make some tweaks to the forecast before our broadcast tonight at 11. But in the meantime, I'll keep you updated on social media this evening. Make sure you have your Storm Tracker 21 app downloaded, fresh videos, hour-by-hour details, everything's on there. And I'll see you tomorrow on social media and on TV. If you're up early tomorrow morning, Jess will have you covered on WFMJ Today. All right, have a great Wednesday night, everyone, and thanks for watching Weather for Weather Geeks.